Hey there. I'm planting flowers, lots more flower seeds. This week I got to get marigolds planted, and I like to create marigold borders around my tomato plants. There's some companion planting. That's a classic companion planting strategy. I don't know that that actually does anything special for me, but I've just always liked the look of it, so I do that. And then I've got a lot of zinnias to plant as well. And so what I'm doing is, yeah, I've got my seeds here, but I got to wash up some cell trays to put. I start the marigolds off in these little cell plug trays usually. Yeah, so a lot of washing cell trays to get them ready so I can use them for my flower planting. Hey, one of the things I'm doing today is planting marigold seeds, and in fact I'm planting some marigold seeds that I saved from last year. I hope my germination will be similar to what I have been experiencing with the new seeds. We'll see how it goes. Everyone, well, today what I'm doing, and behind me here is, you can't see, it's dark behind me there, but I'll I'll give you a shot of it. I'm moving the pepper plants out of the basement and into the greenhouse, and these are pepper plants for the first time that I overwintered. I tried the year before unsuccessfully to overwinter the peppers. I tried to do it in the greenhouse, but it got too cold in the greenhouse and they ultimately died, I think. Either that or I didn't water them. One or the other. But it got too cold in the greenhouse and they ultimately died, I think. Either that or I didn't water them properly. One or the other. But I think it was the cold. And so I put them in the basement, a lot of pepper plants in the basement. Behind me, what I have is a jalapeno and a Jimmy Nardello kind of sweet red pepper. And I planted these back in January of 2020. So we're into our second year on these. And then grew them in these buckets and these pots in the greenhouse during the season last year, and then moved them into the basement under lights. And you know, they weren't getting a lot of light, they were just getting fluorescent light. And I think what my experience with it showed me is that the warmth that was in the basement, because the basement stayed a good 70 degrees all throughout the winter, and just because the heat of the house kept it warm down there, the warmth was actually more meaningful than than how much light, because they weren't, I don't think they were getting a whole lot of light with the fluorescence that I gave them. And in fact, there were a couple where I ran out of room that I put them on the floor and they were quite a ways away from the fluorescence and they still did okay. And so yeah, I guess the peppers, at least during the winter on this, they didn't require a lot of light, and they also flowered and they also fruited. You'll see that I actually have some peppers on these plants coming out of the basement, and they didn't just start fruiting. They fruited a couple of times over the winter. I actually harvested a handful of different peppers and brought up to the kitchen, kind of thing. So this is a little bit different than I expected, because looking at other people talking about overwintering peppers, the whole concept was to put them in dormancy and, you know, cut them back and just put them in a place where they would stay safe and not get damaged by the frost, and then you kind of bring them out and revitalize them. But these peppers basically stayed vital throughout the entire winter for the most part, it seems like. I'm guessing that as we get into the season and there's natural warmth in the greenhouse with the sun and everything, they'll actually be producing a lot more prolifically than they did. You know, get more than just a handful of peppers here and there over a period of 3 or 4 months. But yeah, I was kind of surprised by some of the results. And what I'm wondering about now that I don't quite know is, should I be taking the peppers out of these pots and like trimming the roots, or doing any refreshing the soil, the potting soil, or anything like that? I'm gonna have to research that. But if any of you know and have thoughts on that, please comment down in the comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because I don't know what I'm doing in this regard. This is a new thing for me here. All right, thanks everybody. Hey, it's harvest day for me. I usually try to do harvesting like once a week around here, and so yeah, we've got lots of stuff out here now. What is debatable about me doing it right now, I'm kind of in the middle of the day. It's about noonish, and it is the hottest day we've had in a while. It's like 75 degrees right now, and it's supposed to get up to 80 degrees here in Portland. This is kind of just a warm spell for April. It'll go back down to the 60 degree zone after this, I'm assuming. I believe that's what the weather report says. But aside from that, my point with harvesting and it being a little bit iffy is harvesting when I've got all this direct sun right on the plants is I found sometimes, yeah, it's hard to keep it feeling fresh and good, but it's the time that I have to do it, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it anyway. One of the veggies I particularly like to grow is bok choy, and I actually have two different kinds of bok choy here. This is a Shanghai bok choy, and you can tell the stems are not white, they're green. And you can harvest it, you know, at this stage it can get maybe a little bit bigger than this, and it'd still be good to harvest. I haven't harvested most of mine. I'm letting them get mostly a little bit bigger. This, I want to get a good example of it. Here we go. This is a white stem bok choy. So different than the Shanghai bok choy, it's got white stems, and this definitely will get bigger. I could wait till this was twice the size that it is, and I am leaving a bunch out in the garden to let them get bigger. I like how they look in the garden as well, so I like to see these get bigger just for the look of the garden as well. But I went ahead and harvested some today just so I'd have a harvest here, so that we have some veggies for the weekend and maybe for the coming week, something new. So I'm just getting a little bit anxious, so I'm going ahead and harvesting at the early stage some of these bok choys. So yeah, just thought I would share that with you all. So big thing in harvesting veggies is really just processing them. So what I have here is this solid spinner, and so what I'm doing is putting it in here, and this is a combination of kale leaves and broccoli tips, some kale tips as well. I just kind of mix them all together for our purposes at home, for home eating. So I'm just putting in the solid spinner first, and then I'm gonna so it's got this top here, this crank on it, right? So I put that in here, put the top on, and so you've probably seen these salad spinners kind of smaller size, like you get them that you can have in your kitchen for cleaning and then drying off the salad leaves and take them home from the market or whatever. This is more of a larger size. I'm not sure I would say this is still industrial process, because it's still very manual and it's not that big. What I was trying to say about that is I wouldn't call it an industrial process, because it's still a very manual thing and it's not that big. And so I think that if you were really doing market gardening or farming kind of thing, you would have other procedures for drying, and you can see that in YouTube videos. Folks that do this, you know, using fans. I use the fan occasionally too, using fans, and some that even use like converted old dryers to do this kind of thing to like help process their veggies. And then when they're washing it, they use bubblers to like put it into tubs of water with bubbles that kind of keep it circulating. I just do it very manually. I just take my my veggies and I put them in a stainless steel bowl with water, maybe a little vinegar in it for disinfecting, and then I just move it around with my hand. And I try to be gentle about it so that I'm not going to bruise. You know, the idea with the bubblers when they do that is so that they don't bruise the veggies, and so I don't want to bruise the veggies with my hands, but I also don't want to go crazy with the limited size of my operation either. So my next step, I have the kind of the kale and broccoli tip mix. I'm going to move it over here, and you can see there I've got this in my potting bench. I got a built-in drying station there. So this out here, and now I'm just going to dump it into this drying station here. And this is basically like the equivalent of a colander, right? So I'm just going to spread it out and let the wind and air kind of dry it off a bit before I put it in one of these bags to take inside and put in the fridge for the family. So that's my process anyway. Well, I have my first radish harvest of the season behind me here on the drying rack. Let me show you what I have. These are French breakfast radishes. They were the first ones I planted, so I should get some of the more classic, like round ones, some cherry bells and some sparklers and things like that in the next couple of weeks. I would say probably within the next week. Hopefully, the heat that we're having isn't going to just totally ruin the radishes, cause them to bolt, or cause them to just turn hot too hot too early, kind of thing. All right, I'll see you guys later.